slightly better. And we tend to perpetuate these approaches because they largely work. And as someone who's basically spent 35 years in cartographic education, that's what I'm interested in, helping make people make better maps. So, plug number one, obviously, these are a couple that you'll know about. They've provided the cornerstone of my career in writing about this stuff and presenting about this stuff. But really they're just guides, okay? They're guides designed to offer advice, instruction, to try and keep people broadly on the right track. And I've lent heavily on the ideas in these books, which I've collected as scrapbooks of my entire career. But the problem is if people aren't reading these things and they're not going to these things, then we as a community run the risk of losing what we know forever. There's hardly any cartography courses left in the UK. So who's teaching the next bunch of cartographers? Well, what do I mean by teaching? Well, we pre-bunk things by giving people education in order to give them the tools of the trade. Okay, it's a proactive approach to helping people learn. We debunk things through critique by going over things and saying, well, this did or it didn't work. But we increasingly only talk in our echo chambers. Okay, there's virtually nobody here today making a map for social media. They're out there making a map for social media. And you'll all get home tonight and they'll all be on your phones. Okay, but those people are not in this room. And they're never likely to be in this room, okay? They're doing it elsewhere. And how do we know that? Well, you can make a very, very complicated graph that proves it. If you go from left to right through decades of change in our industry, you can see very, very clear trends. Personalised, democratised mapping, fewer trained cartographers, you know, more and more online, less and less paper, etc. So we know this story. So the problem is really from a perspective of teaching, who the hell is it we're teaching? Because the people that perhaps we might think need to be taught or helped or assisted don't like what the old school are telling them. We're the old school, okay? Even if some of us are a bit younger. So they don't like it. So I'm talking about these kind of maps. I'm not talking about topographic maps or reference maps or geological maps. I'm talking about the sort of maps that the general population consumes every day. Oh. There we go, a little bit of Radiohead. So we might agree in this room that the art of cartography is applying the science of cartography effectively. But for every anatomically correct map, we see these kinds of things. Okay, and we might balk at them. Some of them we might go, oh, that's kind of cute. Or when you sit in yesterday and news bursts that Radiohead are going on tour again, but they're going to distribute tickets geographically based on your proximity to a venue, the middle map here, you sit there and you think, you're not getting past my VPN from California because I can prove that I can live in London. So, and also on that map, if you live in Latvia and Lithuania, apparently you're closest to London for the purposes of getting a ticket. Good luck on Ticketmaster when you go for your tickets. But it's these kind of maps that I'm talking about. I call it a form of cheating, which is just a cheap way of getting another football gag in here. Breaking the rules in some sense is to advance your cause. So this is 1986. This is the famous Hand of God incident where the cheat, Diego Maradona, who openly admitted that it was a little bit of Maradona and a little bit of the hand of God, punched the ball into the net past Forest keeper Peter Shilton. It didn't matter. He didn't care. It was a goal. He cheated slightly. We don't. He doesn't care. He just doesn't care. So if cheating a little bit gets you the result you want, isn't that a little bit like all of these people making maps? They're just making maps to suit their own ends. They don't care if we care. They just care that they care. Okay? So the winner's route really is the preferred route for most of all of this. It's why bandwagons are routinely jumped upon. The rewards outweigh the risks. It's taken the shortest path. The only thing I would note here is this guy over on the right, Steve Hodge, another Forest player. It was his mistake, actually, that led to the goal. Shocking mistake. But after the match, he actually got Maradona's shirt and then sold it about 2 years ago for 7 million quid. So he did all right. So why am I telling you all this? Well, if modern map makers can break the law, then I want to find out why. And to do that, I'm going to break the law. All right, who's got that album? Thank you very much, one of you. So I'm setting out to try and find out what best practices remain valid, perhaps where we can bend the rules a little, perhaps where we can bend them a lot, perhaps where they've been bent a lot that has bent us out of shape a bit. So I'm in the process of exploring, re-evaluating some of our preconceptions, or my preconceptions, seeing where concepts and ideas born out of cognitive research decades ago still exist or don't exist or whatever. So I'm trying to create this sort of modern up-to-date guide. I'm calling it Mapbusters. If I keep calling it Mapbusters, then the press is going to have to go with that title. They might not, but it's like Mythbusters for maps. It's just testing stuff. Let's blow stuff up and see what works. This is the general plan. These are all missteps that we might see on maps. Okay, there's nothing particularly groundbreaking here. Some of these will irritate the hell out of some of you. Some of them you don't care about, and that's fine. But if we don't agree what works and what doesn't work, then how do we expect other people to agree what does and doesn't work? Is basically the point of this. It's very easy to see this sort of stuff. So I'm using this just as sort of a guiding principle about what to look at. So let's try something out in here. You can be an experiment for me. Doesn't matter what this map is showing. I'm not going to tell you. The colours represent a scale from low to high without cheating. So don't take a picture and put it through Google Lens. Either mark the map up, you can't. What's high? What's low? What's medium? Anyone want to have a go?
Orange is high.
Red high.
The first two. Orange is high, red is high.
Beige is medium.
Beige is medium. Purple's where?
Green is low.
You can't agree, can you? You don't know. Okay, so I tried this, and here are some answers. Only one of these answers is correct. Most of the others are quite incorrect. And it basically illustrates confusion. Now, this is kind of akin to a meteorologist or a climatologist using a spectral scheme, and others go, you can't use that, that's rubbish. Well, it might be for a general population, and as we've just proven, they love it, right? They're not going to change, and that's okay. Maybe we need to relax and let them have that nice spectral colour scheme space. Just don't force it on the rest of us, is kind of the thing here. Only 10% of readers could get that correct, because this is the answer. Red is, who said red is the windiest, or it's the highest? It's wind. Hot air. Who said red? High. One person. Who said purple? High. It's the lowest. Okay, and sort of beige is right in the middle. Because what we're really seeing here is this. That's what our eyes are looking at, which is value or lightness in the data set. So if we desaturate the data set, but that's why we're not reading those colours in a way that our brain can interpret a little bit. But as I've said, if it works for a climatologist who does get that, okay, can relax a little bit about it. But for the general population, it doesn't work. Let's turn the attention to a choropleth. If I ask where political support for this party is the greatest based on the total number of votes, the assumption has got to be the darker is the greatest, right? That's got to be this. You can't assume anything else from this particular map. And that's exactly what experiments on this map suggest. If I show you exactly the same problem using glasses of beer, here's 8 areas. They're all glasses of beer when viewed from above. Same surface area. Some are light, some are dark. So the assumption here is what? More beer in some glasses. Different type of beer? Not sure. Could be the same beer. Could simply be because some glasses have different quantities. You'd expect light to dark if that was the case. What's going on here is your brain is trying to make the best guess at what's going on using prior knowledge. what it thinks it knows. And as we all know, particularly blokes in here, we're not very good at remembering anything, let alone the cognitive aspect of light to dark on a map. So there we are. Simply saying there's more beer in some glasses compared to others makes an assumption each glass is the same. What happens if the glass is different? They all have different surface areas, but other properties of the container can be very different. They might be different height, hold a different volume. A fact you can't see by simply seeing up from above on a map or a glass of beer. So the baseline assumption that you're looking at the same glass is impossible to verify. So your assumptions are flawed. How do you interpret these three glasses that look exactly the same? You assume it's the same glass, you assume it's the same quantity. That's not necessarily true. What happens if it's different glasses and they all look the same? Again, the complexity now of all these various assumptions is adding up to cause a real problem, and then poof. It's quite annoying. And what happens if you've got different sized areas as well? And now you've got different colours in different sized areas. And if we change the shape and the size of the glass as well, what are our assumptions now about trying to interpret what the heck it is we're seeing? You may as well just go for a pint, because you can't make any sense about this whatsoever. So the point for this is best practice appears to sustain. Appears to, through me testing this. But it might be that instead of trying to explain this to people using geography and maps, use beer. Might be a better way of educating them. And of course the response to the map when you scale things from 0 to 100 is far better anyway. You get a much better reaction about people's ability to see where is the greatest support for a political party. Okay. Sticking with this, I would contend that one of the things that we've seen over the last maybe 10 or 15 years is people using online base map services to plonk their data on top of, which for somebody who wants to make their map, you kind of, is that a shortcut? Is that a cheat? What's going on here? And I would say, well, you've taken 7 shades of red and you've made 70,000 shades of red, all mixed with different colours of green, so you can't really see it properly. Well, actually, when I test this map with people, it's over 90% can still find the patterns in the data. Whatever I might say about the complexities of mixing it with an underlying base map, so shut up, Ken, doesn't work. People seem to be happy doing this. And talking of happy, staying with colour, this is the UN Happiness Index as proportionally sized kind of emojis, channel faces, let's say. I've got more than 5 minutes, but thank you. Assumptions: happier is bigger, darker yellow, more smiley. Yes, you would be correct. But if you stick it on a darker background or a different colour background, that doesn't hold anymore, that assumption. You have to change it. So now it's lighter on a slightly darker background. And actually I've faded the background, not to dark, because I want to avoid horrible connotations, but to purple, okay, to fit it with the background slightly. Let's do a quick show of hands. Who likes this map? Thank you. 3, 5. Get 6. Thank you, Giles. 7. Excellent. All right. It's cute. All right, thank you. What about this map? 3D. I constantly recommend people don't use 3D for thematic mapping. Obscuration, stuff hiding around the back, the inability to measure columns on the globe, blah, 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 blah. Quick show of hands, who likes this? Oh, you're just not going to admit it, are you? Okay. What about this version? Exactly the same data. I've got one hand, thank you very much. What happens if I do that? Ooh. All right. Now, so quick show of hands, who likes this? Thank you. Okay. Why is that? It's the same data. It's exactly because it looks pretty. Oh, okay. Right. But what I would contend is that has a purpose. Like you stick it on a book cover, you stick it on a T-shirt, you stick it on a website with an animation. You use it as promotional material. The context is absolutely key. So there's no single way of saying this map works and this map doesn't work. So the idea that we can apply our rules and say that is completely wrong. Okay. Do yours need a north arrow? Do we all agree no? Does anybody want to stand on that hill of you've got to put a north arrow on a map? All right, well, if you put a north arrow on that map... Sorry, James?
It's wrong.
Because?
because it depends on the project. North may be that way, depends on where you are.
Giles and I were both taught at Oxford Polytechnic, so clearly we're right. What about this over here? Where's north?
Who knows?
Who knows? Because I made this map up completely. And in fact, if you can see, this is the test data for a lot of my maps. If you can look at it in detail, there's actually an outline of my dog in here as an administrative area. So, and there is my dog. He's no longer my dog. He passed away. But that's thank you. Just go for the sympathy. That's the easiest thing. Okay, here's a map. What about symbology? I developed MoonPie symbology to create this map of the total eclipse from last year. It's non-standard. It's odd symbology, but when you show this to people, they kind of get it. All right, immediately people work out what it's trying to show. This map actually did something really kind of interesting. Generally, people enjoyed it, but actually, you lot, my peers, professionals, loved it as well, which is interesting because that's a very rare thing. It's actually very rare to get maps that the general public like and your peers like at the same time. So, quick show of hands. How many of you like this map? Oh, we'll pay you later. Okay, so this one, I think it was the Bartholomew's Award last year. Okay, right, using exactly the same symbology, this map did not win the Bartholomew's Award this year. So we will have a chat later, Jethro. But I thought that was interesting. It's exactly the same symbology. It's MoonPie symbology, just applied in a different way, in a different context, for a different purpose. Maybe it was because the symbology was treated very simply in the eclipse map. Maybe it's because there's probably 9 or 10 variables being shown by each symbol that makes this a complex map. But I would contend that a map that invites scrutiny to spend some time with it, rather than a short attention, that looks nice, it's got gold foil on it, that's great. This is still a worthy sort of map to create. There's nothing wrong with a map that needs scrutiny and time spent with it. And while we're at it, why do maps have to be rectangular? They don't. This one's circular. What I would suggest is you do need a very, very good legend for this kind of map if you want anybody to try and understand what's going on with it, particularly with the bite marks. And that's why you spend an awful lot of sort of real estate on the map, giving it over to a legend. Whereas on the eclipse map, there was hardly any legend at all. So, do you always need a north arrow? No. Do you always need a legend? Not really. It varies. It's just another rule. We don't have rules. There's no rules for any of this. Okay. Quick show of hands then. Who likes this map? That map? This map? You just can't please everybody, can you? Okay, last map. So increasingly I found myself trying to break rules, partly for the hell of it, because it gets eyes on your maps. So this is a map I made of Ozzy, his touring history with Black Sabbath and also on his own. I made this relatively recently, as you might imagine, and I used it to test a few things, like fonts. Does this map suit Comic Sans? No, but there's a reason why Kern used Comic Sans when they found the Higgs boson particle to try to get a complex theory across to the general public. All right, so let's change it to crazy fonts. Does this align with a lot of our thinking, font-wise? No, because it's way too complex and unreadable. But it matches the theme, so it's not best practice. I couldn't recommend this font to anybody on a map, but I thought, I'm going to use it. So sometimes the subject matter demands you to break the rules deliberately in order to get a particular effect. So let's have a look at the final composition. I warn you now, there is a shouty title that's going to be shouted. There we go. So why not an ornate border? Why not indeed? I tend to put ornate borders on all my maps. It was actually Pink Floyd lyrics on the Eclipse map. It was a graph on the circular presidential map. It's just some crazy bat-ridden kind of ornate thing on this. Kind of works. Allows me to get a few Easter eggs in. There's a Batman map logo on here. Okay, you can do all sorts. There's also a ticket stub, which is the Rock City link to this particular talk. I actually went to an Ozzy Osbourne concert in 1998 at Nottingham Rock City, and he was drugged up to the eyeballs, didn't turn up, and there was a riot. So I never saw Ozzy that night. Now, so where are we going with all this? If we can't teach people anymore, then who are we teaching? Well, there's an idea that we might actually, with our fluency in cartography, be better teaching AI, so that AI is then better able to communicate to the people that are going to use it to make the maps of the future. So, we've done a quick show of hands for several of my maps. People like different maps. There's no consistent recipe. There's no rules anymore. But maybe we can train the AIs to do a decent job. Map Doctor, you can Google it. It's something that Ian Muhlenhouse, my colleague, and a little bit of me have put together. You throw a map at it, and it gives you a critique. What's great, what's not so great, what works, what doesn't work. And it's actually pretty decent. Students love it because before they submit their maps, they put it through here and it will recommend things. Now you're going to ask, what's it trained on? It's trained on the best practices that to date we've been using. So it's going to recommend how you might make your map more conventionally useful. So I thought just for kicks today, to finish this off, I'll put my Ozzy Osbourne map through Map Doctor and we'll see what it says about it, shall we? There's way too much text and I'm not going back. Right, fun and creative, great. You invest a lot of thought, not much, but it's, yeah, okay, thanks. Gothic border, bats, colours. Sorry, it's an American thing. Ticket stub, personality. Yeah, this basically does all the things that I wanted it to do. A little bit of detail. What works well? You can review the YouTube film after this, but, you know, strong narrative theme, clear visual separation of the Sabbath versus the Aussie era, colours pair well, insets work. This is quite nice. I'm starting to think, oh, I've done a half-decent job here. It even talks about map projections. It's an azimuthal Lambert equal distance projection on each hemisphere. I didn't even know it could figure that out. And then it says, what could you improve? Well, actually, I don't disagree with much of this either, but it depends what the purposes of the map is. So yes, I could improve the legibility of the lines. Yes, I could improve text legibility or readability with a different font. Am I after perhaps eyeballs on the map or functionality? Well, you know, it says South America is oddly placed, Australia's out at the edge, but he hardly ever went down to Australia, so I'm happy with sticking it out at the edge. That's fine by me. And then it just keeps going. Hang on. Data emphasis, right? Okay. Balance of the map versus decoration. So this basically critiques it according to standard, you know, best practices, and it's not wrong, but it's wrong for what I wanted to do. Gives me a big picture takeaway. So this is kind of nice. It gives people a way or a mechanism to actually have another pair of eyes, albeit AI eyes, onto the map. The final thing it will do is this very final line. Would you like me to sketch a redesigned mock-up based on this advice? Why, yes, I would. Let's see what AI can do. So this is who likes this map? All right, that's completely AI generated. I don't think my job is I don't know. My job's always at threat, but for the time being, the one thing I will say about this is brilliantly, it left New Zealand off, which is absolutely perfect according to today's maps. So we want to break the rules, right? I'm not going to play that. I'm out of time. For cartography, breaking the rules it's really nothing to get upset about. In fact, it's something to be celebrated. Why? It's a very, very simple theory. Languages evolve. If we speak the languages of cartography, the cartography that I learnt in the late 90s and that I've been going through my entire career, it's just product placement. through my entire career, keeps evolving. Okay, it keeps evolving. So we have to keep up with how it's evolving, otherwise our profession is going to completely die. By the time I get round to finishing this book, AI will probably have written it for me anyway. And finally, what's the answer? Well, the answer is 42. There's 42 slides in this presentation. As we all know, 42 is the answer to everything. So thank you very much indeed.